Good morning. Good morning, people of LinkedIn. Good morning if you are watching us on YouTube. Good morning, Helen, and good morning, Deepa.
Morning.
Good morning.
Deepa, I thought you were going to do one of those, like literally wait until we're live and then you just jump on, make a grand entrance.
No, it's just one of those things where I've not really used this before. So I'm so used to
Ah,
using Teams or Zoom.
yeah.
I was like, wait, I wanted to put my background in, so that was the reason.
Perfect, perfect. And I know at this time of day as well, I know people are doing like school runs and all kinds of things. So sometimes people literally are dashing back to
Mm.
to kind of get in the chair. So I get that. I think you had school run today, Deepa, right?
Actually, I was gonna have the school run, but I was very
Uh-huh.
fortunate that my in-laws are here to help. So, yeah, so they have
Great.
taken the kids, but I still had to get them ready. But yeah.
Yeah, great. I mean, that's we're gonna get into into that sort of thing, the help that we do or don't sometimes have as parents. So thank you so much for joining us. If you are watching us live, please do say good morning in the chat. Also, I know we were due to have Rachel Willis join us this morning from Dubai. So some people may have seen in the updated post, actually, we were going to have Rachel Willis join us from Dubai. Rachel is the global co-chair of the Nurture ERG, which is the Parents and Carers network for HSBC. She's the global co-chair, but with things as they are in the Middle East, Rachel unfortunately hasn't been able to join us. She is safe and well, but obviously there are lots of quite critical business issues at the moment that they're dealing with. So unfortunately, Rachel wasn't able to join us, which is a real shame. But I've got with me Helen Andrews and Deepa Ramesh. So good morning. Thank you for joining us. Good morning, Sylvia. Anna, how are you doing? Sylvia, I think you win the award for the person that's always first with the good morning. So thank you so much for that. I think we are always on a slight delay as well with LinkedIn, but good morning, Sylvia, Anna. Really lovely to have you join us, and I'm looking forward to having you this side of the camera as well, Sylvia. So good morning, Deepa. How's your week been? How's this week been for you, Deepa?
Yeah. I mean, it's been a busy week, but things are actually getting a lot better. I mean, for those who work with me, they know that. So my son had. I've got two kids. I've got a 3-year
Mm,
old and a 7-year old. My son actually had surgery early in the year, very minor surgery, but
right.
it's taking a while to heal with a 3-year-old toddler. So I've had to juggle a lot of, the childcare and
Yeah.
taking time more off work, but also I'm back at work, but it's sort of juggling the timings, making sure I'm there for both the kids.
Okay.
It's the general demands of a working parent, but otherwise, I think it's been a good week. I mean, obviously, there's so much going on in the world, so
Yeah.
I feel quite fortunate to to be safe, the family's safe,
Yeah.
everyone's safe. So yeah,
Yeah.
all good, all good.
Absolutely, yeah. It does put with everything going on in the world. It does definitely put things into perspective. Absolutely. Good morning, Ola, as well. Ola, I'm looking forward to having you in the studio next week, where we're going to be continuing this conversation and talking specifically about invisible carers as well. So really looking forward to that. Helen, how has your week been?
Busy. I mean, my
Yeah,
day job is I work in HR, people and culture, so always really, really busy. And obviously we've had messages and obviously things to make sure our people feel safe as well happening. So I think you're
yeah,
right, Deepa and Cheryl, the big picture stuff does come home, doesn't it, when all
yeah.
of that's happening, and that safety and knowing that everyone's in the right place at the right time and everyone's well and healthy is a big deal. But yeah, different age children. So I've got a 10-year-old and an almost 13-year-old. But the juggle
Right.
yesterday was I needed to be in about 4 places at once. We had parents' evening and drop-offs to taekwondo, and the juggle that creates that is there's an army of people. There's an army of
Yeah,
people that are there.
absolutely.
to help. I don't have local family, so it is a group of wonderful mums and dads that really do help out. So it was, and then I was out. When do I get to go out? That doesn't happen very often, but typically it was on the day where I was juggling about a million things. So yeah, I was out last night as well, seeing some comedy. So
yeah, I love some of the things that you said there, because the saying that came to mind, Helen, when you said about the parents and stuff, is it takes a village, right? And similar with you, Deepa, as well, like with having your extended family staying with you, it takes a village, right? But not everybody has that around them. So Helen, it sounds like you've sort of created that, which is great. Good morning, Caroline. How are you doing? So we've got Helen, you're clearly attracting the big guns this morning, because we've got Caroline.
I don't imagine it's me.
Caroline Mayhead joining us, who Caroline obviously has also been through like the sort of parenting round, as have I, but my daughter's much older now. My daughter's in her 20s. I won't say how old because she won't like me to tell everybody, but my daughter's in her 20s. Good morning, Sunaina, professional auntie. Sunaina, you'll be glad to know I have got my cup of chai, my tea this morning as well. So I'm going to read out your introduction. If you've never watched one of these LinkedIn lives, Helen or Deepa, there is a little bit of tradition here where I get Claude to create your bio. It used to be ChatGPT, but I've gone over to Claude lately. So let me start with Deepa. So I'm going to read out the introduction that Claude has written for you, and then you get to rate it out of 10. So first, let me introduce Deepa Ramesh. Deepa is a senior manager in employee communications platforms and leads a global, in fact, I think you lead the UK, I'm going to say Parents and Carers ERG. She brings a strong communications background to network leadership, with particular expertise in how employee networks reach and connect with their members across a large, dispersed workforce. Welcome, Deepa. How did Claude do?
10 out of 10 there.
10. I think that's the first 10. He is getting a lot better, I must say. And joining her is Helen Andrews. Helen is a senior people partner with over 20 years of experience in HR across financial services, engineering, construction, telecoms, and outsourcing. She's also co-chair of Parents and Carers Employee Network and holds a level 5 coaching qualification. Helen brings a practitioner's eye to everything she does in network leadership. Welcome, Helen. How did Claude do?
That was excellent. I would have to say 10 out of 10 too.
10 out of 10.
Yeah, really good.
Tens across the board, as they say in the world of ballroom. If you know, you know. So Parents and Carers networks. Before we get into the conversation, let's just start with how long you've been involved in your Parents and Carers network, and what made you get involved. So Deepa, I'm just going to start with you. How long have you been involved with the network, and how long chairing?
Yeah, so I actually only joined the network in September 2024. So that's the UK Parents and Carers chapter. And I took on the role of the UK lead just last year in March. So fairly new, but I felt that it really resonated with, sort of what I guess what my day-to-day second job is, other than it is basically a job, right? Looking after 2 kids. And I really felt that, it's a network that I'm really keen to support and drive. And it actually all started with me assisting with our global Christmas kids party that happens at Kantar in the London office. We have around 150 people who attend every year. So I assisted, literally I joined the organization, and then I kind of helped with that. And and then I took the lead on in March last year.
Nice. Amazing. It was interesting. You said about your second job, but I thought, because obviously you have a day job, then you have the kids, and then you've got the network as well. So you've got you're juggling multiple jobs, right? So when you said second job, that
Yeah,
made me
and
chuckle.
actually, I'm also doing an apprenticeship, a level 4 apprenticeship, so that's my fourth job.
Wow. Wow. Ask me why I'm not surprised, because this is so typical of individuals that get involved in ERGs often are doing multiple things inside and outside the organization. Helen, tell us a bit about how long you've been involved and why you wanted to get involved in the network.
So it'll be 3 years in March. Parents and Carers started in Serco, and I've been there since the start. So I was working and helping in our Unlimited, which is our long-term health and disability network in Serco. So I was very heavily involved in that network when it was announced that they wanted to start Parents and Carers and were looking for people to come forward. So I had that background, very passionate about DE&I, all characteristics, all groups.
Yeah.
But obviously a parent of two daughters, juggling that workload, and the juggle the mental load. And I just felt it was very important that our parents and our carers across the business were represented, and that support, that awareness, that champion parents and carers. I think very traditional view is that you can't do both. You can't have a career and be a parent and carer, and I think that's just not true. I think you don't suddenly stop wanting to develop when you become a parent or carer. In fact, I think becoming a parent or a carer really enhances the way you look at the world. I would say, if anything, becoming a parent changed me for the better and made me a better person in work as well as at home. So that was what really spurred me on, and I was very lucky and very privileged to co-chair at the start. So it was myself and Anita at the time that launched it and built our committee and worked to develop it. So yeah, been there since the start, almost 3 years.
Yeah. Amazing. And let's before we sort of like dive into like the running of the network, just talk maybe a little bit about some of the challenges. You've mentioned there's some of the challenges that parents typically face, especially as they're trying to like advance through the organization. So just maybe, either of you just like just share with me some of your thoughts around that and why you think it's important to have these networks.
So if I come at it from a HR perspective as well, because I think I'm lucky. I feel like I'm really lucky that I have got that element to it, and it does really help, I think, in terms of I understand the central and the work that happens centrally. So I think it is an old and very traditional point of view. I think things are moving and things are very much changing anyway. But I do think helping people to realise that they're seen and they're heard, and they absolutely have got all that potential and can achieve, whether you're juggling or not. And actually that ability to juggle shows how good you are at prioritizing and being able to do many things at once. So I think it's about helping those individuals alongside looking at the central HR, the strategies, the processes, the policies, the bits that then can really help individuals to see their real potential. And I think it's all of those things. I think the other bit I would say is for our frontline staff. So we have a high population of operational staff that are not on computers. They're very much people in hospitals. All sorts of very online offline roles. It's very difficult potentially to juggle. So I'm very lucky that I can make my day fit around potentially that drop off or that thing I might need to do. I think for those individuals it's really tough, and the flexibility isn't as easy. So I think that's the other reason why this is so important, is it's really raising attention and thinking about those employees and how do we make them have less of a mental load and able to juggle their work alongside their caring responsibilities.
Yeah, that's a really good point. The whole thing about I don't know what the official term is, but as you're saying, people who have to like physically, go to a location to do their role, or it's like an in real life role, right? It's quite operational. You're absolutely right. Kind of like managing that juggle is not as easy, because you're not like the knowledge worker who's got a laptop, who can pick it up, who can, just move a few things around and drop somebody an email and say, oh, I'm going to be half an hour late, etc. Deepa, what are your thoughts about some of the challenges for this group in particular?
I think Helen was spot on. It's all about, the juggle, whether you're a parent or a carer. And obviously you've got you've got us having to, whether you have to handle a toddler, be in the chaos every day, or whether you really have to support your elderly parents, or maybe, and I personally have a colleague, I know a colleague he's in his 20s and he is supporting his mom through some challenges, and it's
Mm.
difficult. And I think the most important thing that Kantar really, and what we support, and actually it's very close to what I do, because I'm part of the team that manages platforms. So we have our
Mm.
community. I manage Viva Engage, which is our online community, and just having a safe space to put your thoughts out there. So on the community, we've got a total of 7 ERGs at Kantar,
Mhm.
and Parents and Carers is one of it. So what we have is a place where you can post, anything. Like it's whether you
Yeah.
can. So we have like we have some interesting articles that people post, something on burnout. We also have, something called Coffee for Carers, which is like a drop-in session that we do at Kantar.
Yeah.
It's a safe space. We don't record anything. Some people don't come on camera, and they just listen in, and that's completely fine. I think what people really like is having a place where they can share, very common thoughts and
Yeah.
feelings, and sometimes all you really want is to be heard, and not by your partner or friends,
Yeah.
just someone else having common challenges. I've got a lot of friends who, either they're single or they don't have kids, and I don't want to be moaning to them constantly. So it's nice to have a space where you can share the thoughts, where you're coming from, whether you're a parent or carer. And I think one of the biggest things that Kantar has is this
Mhm.
support community globally,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
helps with these challenges.
Yeah. I'm sure I remember seeing in your bio actually, deeper around the platforms, and we may well have some people that are maybe in the chat that are interested about the whole Viva Engage piece and the communities, and if anybody does have any questions about that specifically, we can definitely delve into that a little bit more. One of the things that was interesting actually, Deepa, as you were talking, because I think sometimes when people hear parents and carers, we naturally think about women, and there is a gender skew, that there is biologically there is bound to be a gender skew. But I find it quite interesting that you mentioned a male colleague that is caring and supporting his parents. So what are your thoughts around particularly on the carer side? I know, Helen, I know that you've uh, been doing some stuff about dads in the workplace.
Hmm.
So my question is about how we get more men involved in this particular network, Parents and Carers networks. I don't know, Helen, do you want to maybe talk about some of the things that
Yeah.
you're doing as well around this?
Yeah, we talk very much about caring for in its full range. So we talk about, even before you become a carer or a parent,
Yeah,
so it
yeah,
very much is everybody. We don't want to exclude anyone. We want, and I do think caring is interesting, because you're likely to become a carer in some capacity at some point in your life, whether you're a parent or not, because whether it's a parent, a neighbor, a friend,
mm,
the chance of you actually being a carer at some point in your life is very, very likely. So we talk very much in that sense, so that it is very, it should be gender neutral. I mean, everyone's got likely to have parents at some point who might have some capacity as well.
yeah,
But we've done quite a lot of work of trying to attract more men onto our committee. We last year were very lucky to get a new executive sponsor, Anthony. So we have a male sponsor, which are his dad, and he talks very openly about being a dad and his 3
mhm,
children, and how he's parented and worked, and about how his wife, and together they were a team. So
mhm,
he talks very, I think that's very powerful when you've got very senior leaders willing to talk. And then Dads United came. So again, we've got 2 excellent guys on our committee, Wayne and Steve, and they're very passionate about the gender pay gap, the motherhood penalty,
mhm,
the fact that dads openly talking about the fact that they are heavily involved is positive. So it was their passion that really led to Dads United being formed, and it's a space for men. I mean, it's called Dads United, so aimed at the parent side of it, but we, similarly to Deepa, have got guys that are caring for for parents or to siblings, as well as working. So it absolutely isn't just about parents, but I suppose it creates that space for men, and particularly fathers, to really talk about that juggle and how they manage it, and try and encourage that. Speak up, tell your colleagues, tell your manager that you need to finish it a little bit earlier on that day because you've got an assembly, or you are going to be doing pickup on that day on a regular basis. And don't be scared, so that we can change the narrative and it become more common that people are doing that.
Yeah, amazing. Deepa, you were going to say something?
Well, I was just going to say, well, similar to Helen, actually, our two exec sponsors are men. And so it's actually our group CFO and our global EMEA CEO. So obviously their voices are being heard on our communities online. We've got videos of them talking about their experiences. Also, so I'm the UK lead, but we've got two global leads, and one of them is Amesh Helen. He's based in the US. So we have that group represented as well. But then again, it's the same thing. We have these talks where people can post. Men, we've actually got a lot of men come on and share their experiences. And I think that's definitely, one of the things that one of the topics that I'm really interested in is how do we support men, especially not just as the day-to-day juggle, but also when you've just had a child. How can you support them to sort of take on more of the responsibility, so it's not just the woman having to take time off. So my husband, he works for himself here in the UK. So you sort of he doesn't get parental time off. If he doesn't work, then he doesn't get paid. So I feel like that's sort of one of the challenges here we have in the UK, where I think we need to have more of a voice to support men to be able to take time off, especially if they're working for themselves. And how can the government help people with that challenge?
Interesting. Yeah, it is very interesting. But I love, one of the things that both of you have said is really how your organizations are encouraging men also to get involved in this space, which, if you're listening to this and you've got a Parents and Carers network, already there's a few takeaway tips there. So, whether or not you've got a co-chair or exec sponsor, how do you do that? And something you said, Helen, about getting your exec sponsor to talk openly about their, caring and or parenting responsibilities, really important, which I know that's what Elliot Ray off of Parenting Out Loud talks about very much, particularly for dads. So just in terms of like as a network, what can you point to maybe one particular initiative or approach that's really worked, and why you think it's working? Is there just one thing that you think actually that went really well, and here's why?
I would say, so I think Dads United was launched last year, and I think that has gone very well. It has created that community. We had Elliot Ray come to one of our offices, and we did a talk across the whole business, and then we had a workshop for operational people. So we had quite a few people from our Bristol area, including prison officers and people that were in very frontline operational roles where you can't even have a phone in work, let alone be able to easily roster and so that has definitely helped. And I think we are building momentum around that, and we've had quite a lot of people reach out and say they feel heard. It comes back to being heard and feel listened, and they've got a safe space. And we've just launched Foster and Adopt. So we've got a second subgroup, which is to support fostering and adoptive parents. So we did a session a couple of years ago about adoption. So it was an information to explain, and then someone shared their lived experience, one of our fabulous committee members, and we had quite a few people reach out to say how powerful it was, and how, again, as adoptive and fostering parents, they don't always feel seen or heard because lots of the policies aren't particularly geared towards particularly fostering. So we took the decision that actually there are times when subgroups in the committee really help, and really, so it's particularly around that supporting piece. So we launched that only a few weeks ago, and then we've reached out to an independent social worker that helped us with our session. She's going to run bi-monthly sessions, so around violence in the home, sleep, food, the things that typically, I mean, we all will have sleep, especially with younger children, that can be problematic, but I think coming at it from that specific type of parenting and that need and that support, I think that's what we felt on the calls, is that, oh, you're hearing us, you're helping us, you could feel the warmth. It was quite powerful. So I think that subgroup for certain topics has really resonated and been very, very powerful. And we've had some really positive feedback.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense, because it's a very broad, parents and carers, it's a very broad umbrella, isn't it? And rightly so, because I think there are benefits in, for example, looking at some of the HR policies and trying to be as inclusive as possible. But then I like what you've explained there, Helen, that in terms of then when you're looking at the support and wanting to make sure that people feel seen and heard and understood, this is where the subgroups have helped. That's really interesting. Deepa, how about you? One thing, if you had to point to one thing that you'd say has worked really well.
I think because a lot of what the UK team does, we sort of reinforce what the global team does, just because there's so many things going on, and the global things that are going on are fantastic. But so I really think the Coffee for Carers drop-in sessions are great. They're casual. There's no pressure to join, and you can share your lived experiences, from whether you have issues with mental health or whether you need help with your mental health. Or just simple things like mobile usage, what you think about that. Or I think one of the topics that we covered last year on one of the sessions was about, we suddenly just started talking about screen time. How much screen time can your kids have? So just simple things that are, that you just have a safe space to talk about. I know you said one thing, but I did want to mention one initiative in the UK that we had just done for the first time that was very well received, was the Bring Your Child to Work Day. So I launched that last year, and I mean, the morale, like, people loved it. All the parents who brought their kids in, because the kids had a chance to see where their parents work. I mean, apparently after that, a couple of the kids were like, "Wow, this is so cool! I want to work here. Kantar is the coolest place ever." I mean, the office is pretty cool, and I know some of the other chapters do it as well. I know it's a simple initiative, that obviously it's done in different pockets, but for us in the UK, that was the first time we did it, and I think it was very well received.
That's great. Yeah, I love that. Bring your child to work day, and potentially as well. Actually, I was working with a client recently who they had a women in engineering ERG that were sort of like struggling with engagement, and I was talking about, because I've seen another organisation do an engineering organisation where they did a Bring Your Daughter to Work day. Because trying to get girls. Involved in STEM, right? So bring your child to work. I love that. Definitely love that. Sylvia, Anna, I'm going to go to your comment here. The internal pressure on parents is huge. Not only the pressure of the logistics, but there is an invisible weight that mothers carry, and it's rarely named. Often when women become mothers, old unresolved trauma comes up. Or are we going to get into like the whole women and their mothers kind of dynamic? Because that's like a whole nother, maybe Sylvia, Adam, when you come on, we'll get into that, because that's like a whole nother episode. Normal and unresolved trauma plays a huge role in how we parent and stress levels. I worked with mothers specifically for a few years, and then I can't see the rest of your comments, Sylvia, Anna, but that's really interesting, isn't it? The additional emotional, baggage, stuff, etc., that comes with being a parent or carer. I wonder whether that's why, for example, the coffee catch-ups, which was that you, Deepa, or was that Helen?
Yep.
I can't remember. The coffee I wonder why just creating that space, and a bit like you were saying, Helen, getting that social worker in to talk about these things. I wonder why some of those more therapeutic things are so popular. Is it because, a bit like Sylvia's saying here, that there are these, just like being a parent or carer just throws up lots of like emotional stuff for the person that's doing the parenting or the caring, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely.
I think Natalie Costa talks about it as well, about, you know, the way we were brought up is quite different to how we're probably bringing up our children now. I think, you know, that whole buck your ideas up, what you stop cry, you know, that whole, like, you know, it was tough, you know, I think back,
Yeah.
and it was just how everyone was parented. It wasn't
Yeah.
cruel, or it was just the way it did it. But compared to now, obviously it's very different. But, you know, she says when she's talking, she's also training the parents because they've never been taught that way. And I think that is so true, in that, you know, you're almost working on yourself whilst supporting and working on your kids, because you're trying to do it differently in the world that we are in today. But I definitely think we get triggered. Funny enough, I was talking about this last night when I was out with some girlfriends at the night I talked about. We were talking about I'm having a menopause moment. This has happened 3 times this week. I'm in the middle of talk and then I lose my mind. I will stop. I've completely lost what I was saying. I'm so sorry, everyone.
And that's the thing, isn't it? Especially because you've got 2 young kids, right?
Yeah.
And throw into that, you know, I don't know whether, you know, but throw into that. And I am of that age, you know, I'm in that menopause club, but, you know, and I kind of almost like thank my lucky stars that I had my daughter earlier, because I think now, if my daughter was still young and I had like the school ringing me up saying, oh, Leah's not well, and then I'm going through menopause, and then I've got a mother that needs support, like it's a lot,
juggle,
right?
isn't it? It is a juggle.
Yeah.
Anyway, I forgot my point. I will stop there. But it was good when I was thinking it.
Yeah. It's absolutely fine. That's just such a demonstration of the juggle, literally the mental juggle that goes on all the time. I actually love it. Deepa, I think you were going to say something as well.
So last year we also had this thing that we did globally, which was 3 months of well-being talks. And the good thing about these talks, it's open to everyone. So you don't have to be a parent or carer to join.
Yeah.
And one of the sessions was this Dr. Faye Baghetti. I don't know if you've heard her. She's called the Brain Doctor. And she came in and she spoke about how she's written a book called The Phone Fix, which really is about the neuroscience between using, you know, the psychological effects of using a phone. But this talk was more about how your brain works. And it was so interesting, and the neuroscience about how when you're a parent or a carer, how you have to use extra, and which is why mentally, and I mean, this is why we can't remember things, because we're using so much of our brain. Just when your kid has a meltdown, it's like, you know, you're just using up so much, it's draining you so much. And I think those sorts of talks really, they're fantastic, but also and you know, they make you understand the science behind it. So I think that was really, really interesting, bringing in some speakers that are just not focused just for parents and carers. We had a lot of people join, you know, from the company, and they really loved her talk, because you understand a bit more about your brain.
Yeah, it's really interesting, you know, because you know, and I talk with lots and lots of ERG leads, but one of the reasons that I love doing these sessions, and I know we've got a few in morning, Andrea, a few that I didn't get a chance to say hello to, and good morning, Nora. Nora is sending a heart and menopause support from Stockholm. Thank you. We're always global. Thank you. Thank you, Nora. But one of the things I often realize when I go quite sort of like deep and I'm talking to different networks is that the groups do have these different needs, actually, and so these networks bring something different to the organization. I mean, it's quite interesting. So Rachel, that couldn't join us because she's in the UAE, their network is called Nurture, which is so interesting, isn't it? And I almost, as I'm hearing you talk about the things that have worked and the initiatives, and especially around, you know, just creating a space to support individuals and support their well-being, you're almost doing that for the organization. It's almost like you're sort of, you know, in the way that you're nurturing individuals, and at the same time you're almost like nurturing the organization as well, which I think is really lovely. So yeah, all of these networks just have a slightly different, they bring something so different to their organizations, which I absolutely love. I've got the one question I've got about, obviously I've asked you about one thing that worked. Is there anything that you tried that didn't work, or maybe didn't work the way you expected? Anything?
Always. No, not everything always goes.
Yeah.
I think the thing it's reaching that operational group that is really tough. I think
Yeah.
that's probably the bit that keeps me pondering, keeps me thinking, like racking my brain, like what can we do to really reach that operational frontline, because they don't necessarily know we even exist, if I'm honest,
Yeah.
in certain contracts. So we've tried lots of things, and one of the things we tried to do is do site visits. So a couple of people from a committee, when we are recognising a hero event, so Carers Week, for example, will try and go
Yeah.
to site to meet with people with the view that, well, if we're physically there, we can talk to people. But what generally happens is we maybe speak to 5 people, because what happens is
Right.
that operation is very, very busy.
Yeah.
Trying to actually get time with people can be quite tricky.
Yeah.
People are also nervous to come and talk to us. You know, there is a reluctance almost of like, well, who are those people over there? So it for all the right reasons, we've gone thinking, right, if we can physically see people, because we can't connect via
Yeah.
Teams and things as easily, that will
Yeah.
work. But actually, for the amount of time and effort that was going into it, we were reaching so few people.
Yeah.
So we've
Yeah.
kind of backed off that over the last sort of
Okay.
18 months, and we're not doing
Yeah.
it again this year. We're trying to think,
Okay.
right, there are QR codes on posters. Can we do short snippet videos? Can we create written piece that we share in different ways? So we're trying to think of other ways,
Yeah.
because what we
Yeah.
thought was going to work well
Yeah.
didn't. You know, it
Yeah.
didn't fix it. So I would say,
Yeah.
and I would say it's an ongoing challenge that I imagine many
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
struggling with. But it was not what we were expecting. We were expecting to almost have
Yeah.
floods of people
Yeah.
come and then know us and engage, and actually it's never worked that way.
Yeah. Interesting. Deepa, just something maybe that you've tried that hasn't
Yeah,
worked.
I think, well, I've been in this role not for too long, but I
Yeah.
think one of the things, not as specific as Helen, but it's really trying to do too much. You know, if you have too many initiatives going on, too many speaker sessions, there's too much noise, which is why the
Yeah.
UK, UK chapter tends to sort of just emphasize what the global chapter does. Because if you have too much going on, and we've got 7 ERGs, people just don't have the time, and then you're going to have no one attend, and it's just
Yeah.
too much noise. So cutting down, honing down, focusing on some key initiatives that seems to work quite well. So, for example, last year I wanted to raise some funds for Carers UK organization, which we support. So we run the Christmas party, and we always have a raffle. So last year, what I did is the money from the raffle went to the Carers organization. So instead of doing lots of separate initiatives, we try to
Yeah.
hone down and just focus on a few, because otherwise you're spreading yourself too thin, and
Yeah.
people just don't have time for
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah, I love that as a general takeaway. I think if people maybe only take away one thing from this morning, it would be uh, fewer things done well rather than trying
Yeah.
to do lots of things, especially for the sorts of people that run these networks, which typically are very, very busy, right? So that absolutely makes so much sense. Because you mentioned money, Deepa, I feel as though I should get on to the next question, which is around budgets. And it is a question actually that whenever I do like Q&A type webinars, one of the questions that we often get is what people should spend their budget on. Now, I do often just get the answer, depending on who I have on the panel, which is don't spend the money. Like if you don't have to spend it, because I think people are almost like, oh, I've got a budget now, especially, you know, the average budget is around sort of like 5K or 5 to 10K. Some organizations are bigger because they're fancier. But when it comes to budget, whether it's money or just in terms of time and energy, what's been the best return on investment? And so I guess for somebody that's maybe listening to this and they've got a small budget, if you've had to spend budget, where do you sort of think, gosh, that was money really well spent?
Should I go first? Yeah.
Sure.
So I think in terms of Kantar, the best thing we have is this community. Obviously, the company pays for the platform, which is Viva
Yeah.
Engage, but I
Yeah.
think the ROI from having this community where you can share your experiences, it's invaluable. I mean,
Wow.
and you don't have to. So you can have an ERG chapter in an organization, and you don't have any budget. So having
Yeah.
just a community like this where you
Yeah.
can share thoughts, whether and just share ideas is
Mhm.
fantastic. So we've
Yeah.
also got our intranet, which has
Yeah.
different areas for the different
Yeah.
ERGs. So we try to connect the different
Mhm.
platforms together.
Perfect.
Obviously, in the UK, we do get a small budget, and I tend to try to focus and use that for whether it's the bring your kids to day work or the Christmas party,
Mhm.
just because I
Mhm.
know how much people look forward to it. But that's why I'm
Yeah.
saying, but I think the ROI we get from just this community and
Mm.
being able to work with the other ERGs, which is
Yeah.
fantastic because you're able to share posts, share thoughts on each other's spaces. I
Mhm.
think the strategic collaboration is invaluable. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, you're there aren't many ERGs that I talk to that where they have success with Viva Engage. So I maybe have to get you to come along to the summit and talk about it definitely, because it definitely is an art. But I love that in terms of that ROI just on a platform that enables community, because that's really key to a thriving network, and it's also key to more volunteers for the committee, and then that the pipeline, etc. So yeah, I love that as a reply. Helen, how about you? Best ROI?
I would Yeah, I would say working with working families has been fantastic. So
Mm,
we joined with them probably about 2 years ago, maybe coming up to three actually. Probably it was
yeah,
at the end of the first year of the network, and they've just been fantastic. So
yeah.
with the membership, you get a whole host of access to membership platform with loads of policies, loads of ideas, loads of
Hmm.
information, which is really good. And they will obviously come and do some talks and bits and pieces. So some of our sessions, some of our most listened to sessions around flexible working. So last year we did a whole lunch and learn on flexible working and trying to make it very
Hmm.
practical and the sort real life examples of what you can ask for. It doesn't have to be you're going to go part-time or you're going to work from home. It can be a small shift change or
Mm,
lunch time that you need to go back and look after a parent and whatever.
hmm.
So that made a big difference, and I think we're upping our work with them this year actually. So we're talking to them more regularly, so every month, and we've got subgroups of our committee, so people have got roles, and we've got an
Yeah.
outreach external group who are speaking to working families and then starting to look at other networks in other organizations that we can partner
Hmm.
with, that introduction piece as well. And then they did the benchmark, so they offer this for us to complete. It's like many benchmarks that lots of companies provide, where you complete lots of
Hmm.
information about who we are and what we offer. But what
Yeah.
that highlighted was where we were and where we stand. And that's been helpful when we're talking to leaders and central teams about our policies and our processes and
Hmm.
things that maybe we could change that would make a fundamental difference to our parents and carers. So really trying to take the business on a journey as to, well, could we up this, or could we think about this being paid, off the
Yeah.
back of understanding where we compare externally against other organizations like us and others. I think
Yeah.
that really helpful. I think that's been
Yeah.
really powerful. So I think
Brilliant.
it's almost like a full package of everything you could possibly need.
Yeah.
A cheerleader that's going, you're doing amazing, well done,
Yeah.
which you don't get often, because this is relentless, isn't it? At the end
Yeah.
of the day, it can be quite tough running
Yeah.
an ERG. So I think having that expertise, that relationship as well. I mean, I've got a fabulous relationship with Suzanne. She's awesome.
That's
And then all this
great.
additional support
Yeah.
um, has made a massive difference. So it
Yeah.
isn't, there are levels, so you can pick
Yeah.
cheaper levels versus higher levels. But for what we
Good.
pay, what we've got back is amazing. I
Yeah.
can't talk more highly of what working families have done.
That's incredible. And it kind of links to like just collaborating with other organizations as well. So did you say it was working families? Is that what they're
Yeah,
called?
working
Helen?
families, yeah.
Working families. So working families as an organization, for anybody that's out there that maybe is supporting a network, definitely something. So do they have different levels of membership? Do they,
They
the
do.
way that you've
Yeah,
described
so
it?
there's
Yeah, yeah,
three, from memory,
perfect.
there's 3 levels of membership, and
Yeah.
you get different things in that membership, but it can then, from a budget perspective, if you haven't got quite enough of the top membership, or
Yeah,
there's lower membership. So I think it's definitely worth reaching out. Even their website, in terms of their free resources and the amount they do on there, is so excellent. And they talk about
fantastic.
very topical, also in terms of like employment right bill and all the things that are changing that
Yeah,
affects lots of family friendly pieces of
yeah,
legislation. It's all in
yeah.
there. They talk about Elliot Ray's Parenting Out Loud. There's lots of ambassadors and relevant topics that I just think
Yeah,
it helps. It helps to have that
yeah.
external view.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Helen, for that tip as well. Working families in particular. If I can remember a little bit later today, I'll drop the link in to the website in the comments. Good morning, Natalie. Thank you so much for joining and for sharing this comment as well. Just stumbled on this session as a result of reaching out to an old colleague. I'm sandwiched between caring for my elderly parents, my terminally ill sister, and her family and my children, whilst also doing my full-time role. Oh my goodness, Natalie, my heart goes out to you. And I hope that in your organization there is a network like this. Please do feel free to reach out to myself, etc. And then obviously Helen has mentioned working families. In next week's LinkedIn Live, Natalie, so if you want to save it again, I'm actually talking to Ola Soneye, who is in the comments here, who has an organisation also that supports unpaid carers and invisible carers. And so next week we're going to be going even deeper, particularly around the caring, because I know that this is such a topic, and maybe we'll just veer into that a little bit with both of you here, because what's so interesting. I mean, so I care for my mum who has mental health challenges, and it was last Friday, actually, a friend of mine texted me in the morning, probably while I was in the middle of my live last Friday. And she was like, "Oh, I'm coming to a low." Oh, thank you so much, Ola, for sharing the link. My friend texted me and said, "Oh, I'm coming to a spa near to you. Can you come?" But I was actually doing my live when she messaged it to me. And then I messaged her later and I said, "Oh, I'll come and join you for lunch." So I went out to join her for lunch. It's about 5 miles away. I was having lunch with her, and she's recently dealt with caring for her aging grandparents, who one of them sadly passed away, and then also her mum, who's quite old as well, and she's got young kids. So she is sandwiched in between 3 generations. And then somebody walked in the door who I thought I recognised that person, and they said Cheryl, and it was an old family friend from like 30 odd years ago, who was actually on a carer's break because she's caring for her mum. And we were talking about this whole like sleepwalking into being a carer, especially for your parents, right? And I was saying to her that, a few weeks ago, I was sort of supporting my mom through a bit of a crisis. And one of the mental health nurses said to me, "Have you thought about a carer's assessment?" And I was like, "Am I a carer?" You sort of just don't realize. So I guess one of the questions I've got for you, I'm guessing that there are people like this in your organizations, a bit like Natalie in the comments, who find themselves in these caring roles. And at first they don't even think it's caring, because they just sort of think you're just helping out a family member. How do you help those individuals even realize that that there is that, even though it's a label, carers, right, that you can support and help? How do you do that? Because I'd imagine it's quite difficult, because those people probably don't identify with the term carer.
Yeah, we generally, whenever we do a fireside chat or a topic, we talk about what's the definition of a carer, and lots of the people working families do a great session on that as well, saying it is, even if you just do the shopping for the neighbour over the road once a week, you're a
Yeah,
carer. So they talk about it a lot. And so helping people to realise that little bit that you do and you are a carer, it's just depending on how much you do, might be the size of caring you're doing, but
yeah,
you are a carer. And then we've talked a lot about on our calls also about talk to your manager. So some people, the other thing is they're coping with all of this mental load,
yeah,
and they're worried about telling their manager, they're worried about how that's going to look, because they're trying to, but what we try and encourage is speak to your manager, because they can then help. If we know what's happening, you know, whether it is just in certain things that need to happen, or providing some time away for a bit of time, you know, whatever it might be, we can work together to accommodate it. The worst thing you can do is just kind of hide it and have that level of pressure that then means you might break, because ultimately what we want to do is make it successful for you to be able to do your caring responsibilities and also work, because obviously people need financial input to be able to live. So I think we talk about that whole piece about who's a carer pretty much all year. So whenever we're doing sessions, it's there to remind people, and it's then we do focus a lot on talk to your manager, and then from a HR perspective, just putting that bit in, it's then about how do you upskill the managers, so when that person comes to them to say, I've got this going on, what can I do? They go, oh, right, well, we've got this, this, and this. And we have, you know, Serco is brilliant in that we've got obviously flexible working and lots of things. We've also got something called Care Concierge, which we get through our legal and general pension, which is for caring for adults. And there's a line and a microsite that is dedicated to helping people understand the caring regime. And just as you said, Cheryl, what's the financial support, what's the local council can offer, what are the various things that you can do to help you on that journey. And it is that bunch of people that can just really give that advice, because when it happens, particularly with elderly care, it can be quite sudden, and you're not prepared for it, and suddenly you've got to find a way of finding either a care home or potentially some carers to come in to help with some difficult situations. So I think we're very lucky that we've got some really great services, but I think also it's about talking about the role of the manager and how if you open up, you potentially will get more help that can really support you.
Yeah, absolutely. Deepa, your thoughts. What do you do to help people identify that there is this support they can get?
So last year we basically got this partnership with Carers UK, but although the partnership is with the UK, it's actually the resources can be used globally. So we really publicized it last year. There's an app you can download. So we had it on our intranet. We had it, you know, on our Viva Engage, and we're constantly letting people know you have all these resources out there. For the UK, last year we had a meet your greet ERG in the office. So as UK leads came together, and I physically got these brochures from the Carers UK, and I was giving it out to people. And also every year we have a week. It's called Energize. It's Energize Week, where you know, we all the ERGs get to come on and kind of talk about what they're doing, and we have some really interesting speakers come on. And last year we had Carers UK, and this is globally featured, so anyone can join. So we have got all of these things out there, but I think Helen talked to a very key point, which is speak to your manager, you know, and make sure that you let people know about it. The other thing that Kantar has is something called global life leave. So so anyone who has caring responsibility, if you need to take some time off, there are a few days you can take off. So for example, my colleague had to take his mum for physio, so you can take the day off as global life leave and take your I think that's what it's called. But you can support your parents or whoever it is that you're caring for. So lots of different ways to support.
And this is the thing, and Sylvia's raised an interesting question here, but linking to what you were saying, Deepa, about working with the other ERGs, this Parents and Carers in particular is one type of network that really goes across everything, as in, you know, it affects everyone. So actually that close working with the other ERGs, so that they actually can potentially signpost people as well to Parents and Carers, because it's a life stage thing, right, rather than a sort of like fixed identity. Really interesting question. Do people feel safe to share with their managers that they are struggling with the pressure load? Something policies are there, but the psychological safety to be able to speak up is not there. Interesting. What are your thoughts about that? Do people feel safe to share?
It's really interesting, and I think it's such a good, well-made point. I think what, as an organisation, what you want to do is work, and I suppose from a Parents and Carers and from people partner perspective, it's about developing those relationships and ensuring there is good psychological
Yeah.
safety. So, you know, training and upskilling can go so far with managers. And then it's also about, I think, again, it's about that, like when I talked about Anthony sharing about his family and his ways, I think that helps. So if you've got vulnerable leaders who are openly talking about, you know, things that are going on in their world, it allows other people to think, I can do that too. It's okay here. If
Yeah.
he's doing it or she's doing it, then actually I feel. So I think we very much encourage that lead with example, role modeling right from the top, and then support and try and give as much support. And we do, in our sessions that we've run, we've also aimed them at managers. So when we were doing like adoption, we did talk about, if you're a manager with someone who's adopting a child, these are the tips and things you could do that would really help. So we do aim in our sessions as well to try and upskill managers on relevant topics. So I think, you know, it will be very personal to whether or not someone feels they've got that psychological safety. But I think all those things that we can do in organizations to try and help someone to have that psychological safety. And if it isn't a manager, perhaps it's a colleague, perhaps there's someone else that they can in work know, this is what I'm dealing with, and that in itself can provide support. You know, it's again that I've got someone who gets what's going on and that I can speak to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and so here in Kantar, we actually rolled out something called empathy training for managers. We rolled it out last year. So anyone who's a manager and they have someone on their team having to take time off, whether because they're going to, you know, have a child or they have this workday training, and I think that's kind of helped managers understand. I think I'm just very fortunate that I work with a team of people who understand, but obviously yeah, it's a tricky subject, and getting you know everyone to empathize with what people are going through.
Empathy training, that's an interesting one, isn't it? We're going to be wrapping things up now, so even though I feel as though we could have talked for much longer, but as I say, I've got part 2 coming up with Ola next week, and we're really going to be getting into specifically more around the carers and the complexities around that and the different scenarios. So we're going to be talking about strategies that organizations can take, but also for individuals, you know, if individuals are, especially as individuals approach those more senior levels, you know, they're just about to kind of, you know, potentially start knocking on the boardroom door, and then these caring responsibilities tend to pop up. So we're going to be really delving into that next week with Ola. But before we go, what is maybe one piece of advice that you would give to other network leaders, whether it's parents and carers specifically, or just any employee resource groups? One piece of advice from you?
Oh, that's a tricky question. One piece of advice. So I would say don't try and do it all on your own. So I think it's really important you've got a team of people around you, and that you don't try and do, because on top of a day job, it's a big role, it's a big responsibility, and it shouldn't fall on one person's shoulders. So I would say we've got co-chairs for all our networks for good reason. So, you know, there's that you've got each other's back. If one person can't make something, the other person does, and we do actively do that. And then encouraging and growing a team of people, like-minded people who are passionate and want to really give back, means that you don't have to do it all. And actually you shouldn't do it all, because actually other people have great ideas and great thoughts and can push things. So I'd say work really hard to find a team of people that work with you, so you're not doing it all on your own, and you can share the load, is probably my big bit of advice.
Absolutely. We did some surveys that we did around, I want to say this time last year, maybe just a little bit earlier. A strong committee was the top answer in terms of what makes for a successful network. It was a strong committee, so that absolutely resonates. Deepa, how about you? One piece of advice?
Yeah, I think just keep your purpose simple, let lived experience lead. Yeah, I think that's one of the key things. Like what Helen mentioned, I mean, the ERG leadership, and you know, it is a volunteer role. So, you know, we don't want to pressurize anyone. So keep it simple, celebrate small wins, do whatever works. And honestly, anything you do really matters to people. So, yeah.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah, keep it simple. Just keep it simple. Do you know what? I think if more networks listen to that, they'd actually get a lot further forward. I think there's a lot of temptation to burn out and try to do lots of different things, etc. But keeping it simple, I love. So many things that you've mentioned. I love the idea of like working families as a framework, potentially for networks to tap into. I think that's really useful as well, and also the importance of the exec sponsor. I know that's something that both of you've talked about in terms of the success of this particular network. So, yeah, I think we're out of time pretty much. So, I'd love. I mean, obviously, you know, I'm gonna. I know you two are connected. Deepa, I'm definitely going to be getting in touch with you about Viva Engage because,
Sure.
you know, networks that can get Viva Engage to work are like gold dust. Honestly, thank you everybody that has joined us as well in the comments this morning on this rainy, slightly grey morning. Let's just hope the sun comes out later today. And also, you know, for anybody that's watching from around the world, we're really hoping that everybody stays safe and well as well. Helen and Deepa, thank you so much for your time this week, because I know that you're incredibly busy.
Yeah,
No
thanks.
problem. It's been
Thanks.
lovely.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, thank you.
Amazing. And thank you to everybody that's watching us on the replay. Thank you so much for taking an hour out of your time to do that. Hope you all have an amazing weekend. Take care.